Get out of my dining room. You don't tell me my job in front of a guest.
Samuel Diop didn't flinch. He set down the plate, hands steady, and walked into the service hallway without a word. 3 hours earlier, a man had taken the last seat at the counter. Jonathan Arnaud, the most dangerous critic in France. Across the room, Samuel was clearing plates. He saw Frank Whitmore, the head sommelier, stop mid-pour, his confidence suddenly gone. Frank was a man who loved the sound of his own voice, but the stranger's quiet request turned his performance into panic.
Something honest tonight, please. Not from the spreadsheet.
What is he, a cop? Honest? Who says that? I don't have anything honest on that list. Monsieur, I can recommend a brilliant Saint Julien, or perhaps a Barolo with some age.
Frank. The unlabeled bottle. Back left rack. Second shelf. Grab it now.
Frank's face twisted in rage. He ordered the busboy out, then marched to the cellar and grabbed the unlabeled bottle, already tasting victory. Frank strutted back to the dining room, the unlabeled bottle held high like a trophy. He was ready to prove the busboy a fool.
A busboy's recommendation, monsieur. Let's see what gutter wine the kitchen staff drinks after hours.
He drove the corkscrew in with theatrical force and pulled. The cork came free with a soft old pop, a faint mahogany stain on its side. Frank poured a thin ribbon of deep garnet into the critic's glass, then stepped back, arms crossed, waiting for the humiliation. Jonathan lifted the glass. He didn't drink. He swirled it once, twice, then brought it to his nose and closed his eyes. One sip. That was all. Jonathan's eyes snapped open. His whole face went pale. The glass slipped an inch in his trembling fingers.
Monsieur, is the wine corked? I can open another.
The label. Where is the label? What is this bottle?
It's unlabeled. A Loire blend, perhaps. I was told, the busboy said.
Jonathan Arnaud set the glass down and turned the bottle in his hands. He studied the naked glass, the ancient cork. His silence was a verdict.
A small Loire producer. Monsieur, nothing on the label, but we list it at 310. Rustic, honest.
310? For an unlabeled bottle. You are asking me to trust a price on a ghost.
The label fell off in the cellar. It happens with older bottles. I am certain it's a cot.
You are the head sommelier, and you think it's a cot. You do not know what is under your own roof.
Frank's throat closed. The gold tasteovan around his neck felt heavier with every second. He was being dismantled by a man who had not yet raised his voice.
He knows. He's going to bury me. I have to get control back. Think.
The busboy. The one you threw out. I want him back in this room. Now.
Monsieur, I must insist. He's only a busboy. He has no formal training. I am the sommelier here.
Perhaps he should be. Bring him. Or I will find him myself, and we will discuss your formal training in my column.
Frank turned without another word. The walk to the service hallway felt longer than any cellar staircase. Samuel was waiting, as if he knew. Samuel walked into the dining room with the same quiet dignity he had when he left. Frank shadowed him, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. The other diners glanced up, sensing a shift.
Monsieur, as you demanded, the busboy.
Thank you. You may wait over there. Samuel, is it? Do you speak French?
I do, monsieur.
He's just a busboy. This can't be happening. Why is Arnaud speaking French to him? I am the sommelier. I am losing control.
Then tell me, in our language, why you chose this bottle.
The cork stain, monsieur. I recognized it instantly. It is a mark from a specific bottling in Saint-Emilion. My father worked there.
Your father? What was his name?
Samuel answered in French, his voice steady. The critic leaned in, his earlier ferocity gone. For 12 minutes, the room heard only their hushed, rapid exchange. Silverware paused midair. No one moved. The 12 minutes ended. Jonathan pulled back, his face unreadable. Then he turned to Frank, who still stood stiffly by the service door.
The bottle. Give it to me. Now.
Frank's hand trembled as he placed the unlabeled wine in the critic's waiting palm. Jonathan tilted the bottle, letting the candlelight catch the ancient cork. He brought it close to his eye. The stain was unmistakable, a deep, rust-colored crescent that only came from one cellar.
Monsieur, I must object. This is a busboy's fantasy. He has no credentials.
Jonathan didn't look up. From his inner pocket, he withdrew a small jeweler's lope. Through the glass, the dried wine had left a pattern as unique as a fingerprint. Samuel watched without speaking. He had seen his father hold bottles that way. The critic lowered the loop. His eyes met Samuel's, and the room seemed to hold its breath. Jonathan set the loop aside. Then he spoke again, in the rapid Bordeaux French that had become their private channel, shutting Frank out completely.
The name of the chateau, Samuel. You have earned the right to speak it. Do not be afraid.
Samuel hesitated. For a moment, he seemed to see a dim cellar, an ocean away. His father's hands on a similar bottle.
1947 Cheval Blanc.
The name dropped into the silence like a blade. The kitchen door swung silent. A wine glass trembled on its stem. No one breathed.
He's lying. He has to be lying. This is a busboy's fantasy. There's no way. A Cheval Blanc? Here? For 40 years. You expect anyone to believe that?
I expect you, Sommelier, to show me the purchase records. Now, let the papers speak and end this charade.
Frank Whitmore did not move. His face had gone the color of old linen. The gold test-of-in around his neck felt like a noose tightening with every breath. The critic's gaze did not waver. The verdict was already forming, and it would not be kind. The sommelier's career hung by a thread, the standoff held. A waiter slipped through the service door and returned with Elliot Crane, the owner, his tie already loosened, and a deep frown cutting his face.
What is going on here, Frank? Why is the entire dining room frozen?
Elliot, this bottle was misshelved years ago, before my tenure. The previous sommelier must have.
The previous sommelier did not pour this tonight. You did, and you tried to pass it off as a Loire blend. I am Jonathan Arnaud.
Elliot Crane's face drained of color. The critic who could sink a restaurant with one column was standing in his dining room, holding a bottle his staff could not name.
Then it was the busboy. He told me to grab it. He must have known it was there. He planned this.
I only cleared plates. I never touched that bottle. You ordered me out, remember?
Enough. Mr. Crane, this young man recognized a $40,000 bottle by a stain on the cork. Your sommelier tried to sell it for $300. I will write about this.
Monsieur Arnaud, please, give me 24 hours. I will pull every record personally. Nothing will be hidden.
Jonathan nodded once. Then his gaze fell on Samuel, who stood apart, silent and straight. A busboy in a war he had not started, but one he would soon end. The last spoon fell silent. Jonathan Arnaud gathered his coat, his parting look, saying more than any column could. The dining room cleared, and Samuel walked out into the cold Tribeca night, his vest still buttoned, his mind 1,000 miles away.
Papa would have known that bottle by the smell of the cellar air.
In his memory, a different light. The low golden lamp in his father's cellar in Saint-Emilion. His father, Amadou Diop, a foreman with hands like carved wood, had taught him the language of bottles before he could read.
Every stain, every dust pattern told a story. He made me memorize them like scripture.
That cellar was where the 1947 Cheval Blanc had been born, not just aged, but bottled, corked, and sealed by his father's own crew across town. Frank Whitmore sat alone in his office, the door locked, his hands trembling over a stack of wine lists that suddenly meant nothing.
The records won't match. They'll find out. My Tastavin, my career, ruined by a busboy.
Samuel reached his apartment, but he did not sleep. He sat with his father's photograph, and for the first time in years, he did not feel ashamed of what he knew. By 7 the next morning, the kitchen at Lumiere hummed with one question: had the busboy really humiliated the head sommelier? Elliot Crane summoned Samuel to his office before the first coffee.
Samuel, how did you know that bottle? No busboy has ever pulled a Cheval Blanc from my cellar.
I grew up in Bordeaux. My father worked the cellars where that wine was bottled. I knew that stain as a child.
Across town, Jonathan Arnaud called an old friend at the Institut des Vins in Saint-Emilion. He described the cork, the bottle shape. The voice on the other end went silent, then spoke in a hush. It is one of the lost bottles. Cheval Blanc, 1947. Provenance confirmed. Market value, 40,000. Jonathan wrote a single line in his notebook, then closed it. The story was no longer a mistake.
Frank, I have the historian's report. This bottle was never purchased by this restaurant. Explain yourself.
Elliot, the previous Somm, must have bought it. I had no idea it was there. You have to believe me.
That afternoon, Jonathan Arnaud returned to Lumiere. The lunch crowd had thinned, but the tension had not. He asked for the busboy.
Samuel, I need to speak with you privately. Not as a critic to a busboy, man to man.
They sat in the quietest corner of the empty counter. The only light came from a single candle between them.
Your father. Tell me truthfully, was he more than a foreman at Cheval Blanc?
He was the foreman. He managed the cellar crew that bottled the 47. He taught me what corks meant.
And his name? I must know his name, Samuel. For the record.
Amadou Diop. But that name is all I will give you tonight. The rest is not mine to share.
Jonathan wrote the name in his leather notebook. Diop. He underlined it twice. The pen stayed poised. Samuel rose, his gloved hands resting on the counter. The gap between busboy and critic had never felt smaller. Jonathan closed the notebook. He did not press further, but the name burned in his mind like a clue that would rewrite everything. Jonathan made a late-night call to Saint-Emilion, his voice low as he asked about the Diop name. The historian on the line paused. Then he spoke with weight. The Diops were not just foremen. They owned the cellar that bottled the 1947 Cheval Blanc. Every bottle from that vintage passed through their hands. The entire production run. A family legacy hidden in a Tribeca rack for 40 years. Jonathan set down the phone. The busboy's uncanny knowledge finally had a face. It was legacy, pure and undeniable. At Lumiere, Frank Whitmore was in Elliot's office, his voice cracking.
You can't believe a busboy over me. He planted that bottle. He must have snuck it in days ago to trap me.
Frank, I traced the inventory. The bottle was logged 9 years ago by the previous Somm. It's been in my cellar the entire time.
But I priced it at 300. It was an honest mistake. You can't throw away a decade of my work for one oversight.
An oversight that humiliated us in front of Jonathan Arnaud. I have no choice now. The review will determine everything.
And in his study, Jonathan Arnaud wrote 3 words in his column: the Diop cellar. The story was no longer about a mistake. It was about a son. Jonathan returned to Lumiere an hour before service. He found Samuel alone at the counter, a single photograph in his hand.
Samuel, I spoke to a historian in Saint-Emilion. Your father, Amadou Diop, was more than a foreman. He owned the cellar that bottled this wine.
I know. I've carried that secret for years. This is him.
The photograph showed a young Amadou Diop, standing proudly among the barrels of the cellar that had bottled the 1947 Cheval Blanc. In the service doorway, Frank Whitmore stood frozen. He had come to beg for his job, but the words died in his throat.
It's true. Every word. I am finished.
Frank stumbled back into the hallway, his Tasteven clinking against the doorframe. a sound like a small bell tolling.
Your father's name belongs in the history books, Samuel. When I write this, everyone will know the Diop legacy.
I only wanted the truth known. Not glory, just his name spoken with respect.
Jonathan nodded slowly. The air between them hummed with the weight of an unpublishable column and a life about to change. Elliot suspended Frank that morning. The word flew through the kitchen like a grease fire.
Frank, you are suspended pending the review. Do not set foot in the dining room.
This can't be the end. There has to be a way. I won't let a busboy break me.
Samuel arrived, and the kitchen parted like a sea. No one met his eyes.
They don't know whether to treat me as a traitor or a savior.
He cleared plates as always, but now his movements felt charged, deliberate. In his study, Jonathan polished every line of his column, each word a chisel strike. He wasn't writing to destroy a sommelier. He was writing to build a legacy.
This young man bottled more than wine. He bottled his father's name.
Sunday still hung in the distance, too close and too far. The restaurant held its breath. Sunday morning broke gray over Tribeca. Samuel walked into Lumiere before any staff, his busboy vest buttoned, his hands trembling slightly. The first thing he did was open the website of Le Journal. Jonathan Arnaud's column was already live, front and center. The headline read, "The Busboy, who knew more than the sommelier." Below it, a photograph of the Cheval Blanc bottle. Samuel read the first paragraph, his breath catching. Arnaud described Frank Whitmore as a man who does not know what lives in his own cellar. But the columnist's praise for Samuel was absolute. A palate born in the cellars of Saint-Emilion, a quiet genius who recognized a $40,000 wine by the stain on its cork.
He kept his word. Papa's name is in print.
Before he could finish the column, the office door swung open. Elliot Crane stood there, holding a printed copy of the review in his hand.
Samuel, my office, now.
The kitchen had come alive, voices dropping as Samuel followed Elliot. Everyone had seen the column. In the office, Elliot laid the paper flat on the desk. The silence was thick enough to bottle.
Samuel, listen to this. The young Diop carries centuries of Saint-Emilion in his quiet eyes. His father, Amadou Diop, bottled the 1947 Cheval Blanc with his own hands. It goes on. Frank Whitmore, by contrast, is a man who could not recognize a legend under his own roof. Lumiere deserves better.
Elliot set the paper down and looked at Samuel with an expression that had no trace of the busboy's vest in it.
Samuel, I need a head sommelier who understands the soul of a bottle, not the price tag. Will you take the position?
Head sommelier. This was Papa's world, but am I ready to carry his name on this counter? Mr. Crane, I've cleared plates for 7 years. My father bottled legends. I need to know I can honor both.
Take tonight. Think it over. But know that the restaurant can't wait long. Your answer could redefine this place.
Samuel's hand went to the inside pocket of his vest, where his father's photograph always rested.
Papa, what would you say? You never chased titles. You chased truth in a bottle. One day, Mr. Crane. I'll give you my answer tomorrow, but my heart already knows it will be yes.
Samuel left Elliot's office and walked the silent length of the tasting counter. The chairs were pushed in, the candles cold. His gloved hand brushed the wood where his father's wine had first been poured, the grain familiar as a heartbeat.
This counter will soon hold my name. My father's name. I won't let it be just another job.
His phone buzzed in his vest pocket. The caller ID read, Jonathan Arnaud.
Samuel, I heard Elliot offered you the position. You must take it, not for yourself, for the legacy.
I know, Jonathan, but I need it to be right. Not just a title, but a tribute.
Then make it a tribute. Rename the program. Put Diop on that brass plaque. That is your condition, isn't it?
The line went silent. Samuel looked at his father's photograph, the answer already written in the sepia tones. He walked back to Elliot's office and stood in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the morning light.
Mr. Crane, I'll do it. On one condition.
Name your condition, Samuel.
Rename the wine program after my grandfather. The Diop Wine Program.
Done. It's the least I can do after what you've given us.
Elliot didn't hesitate. He nodded once. A businessman honoring a legacy. Frank Whitmore was formally terminated that afternoon. His tenure at Lumiere ended as abruptly as his taste had once been celebrated. He was seen leaving through the back door, a box of personal effects in his hands. A maintenance worker unscrewed his nameplate from his office door. Samuel watched from the tasting counter as Frank's car pulled away. The tyranny of the taste-of-in was over. The new plaque would bear the words, Diop Wine Program. It would arrive the next week. The transition was set. Frank Whitmore was gone, and a Diop would now lead where he had once served plates. The brass plaque arrived on a Tuesday. Diop Wine Program, engraved in bold letters. It was fixed to the wall beside the tasting counter. Samuel stood behind the counter for the first time, a black sommelier apron replacing his old vest. His father's photograph rested in his pocket.
You look like you belong there, Samuel.
I feel like I do, Mr. Crane. For the first time.
The first guests arrived, the candlelight flickering as Samuel poured a measured taste of Bordeaux. No one mentioned the busboy's vest. That Sunday, Jonathan Arnaud's follow-up column appeared. Lumiere's rebirth. The Diop Wine Program is not just a name. It is correction. By evening, the counter was full. Every guest had read the column. They raised their glasses not just to the wine, but to the man pouring it. Samuel tasted every bottle before it left the counter. His palate, once hidden, now guided the entire room. Frank Whitmore's name faded from reviews and reservations. The restaurant's reputation rose on the shoulders of the quiet boy from Bordeaux. The Diop Wine Program had begun, and in Saint-Emilion, a small cellar's legacy now stretched across an ocean to Tribeca. 1 month later, Jonathan returned for a private dinner. Samuel placed the 1947 Cheval Blanc at the center. He held the bottle so the label caught the light. The yellow shield glowed like old gold.
This is the wine my father bottled. It has waited decades. Tonight it comes home.
He set the old photograph beside the bottle. Amadou Diop, young and proud, in the legendary cellar.
He taught me that a stain is not a flaw. It's a signature. I saw his signature on that cork.
To Amadou Diop, and to the son who refused to forget.
The guests drank. A sommelier from Lyon wiped his eyes. The room was silent. Samuel's voice did not break. He had carried this story through 7 years of shifts. Now it was free. Jonathan's column had started it, but this dinner sealed it. The Diop name now stood with Cheval Blanc, and somewhere in Saint-Emilion, a distant cellar seemed to creak with pride. Across town, Frank Whitmore's calls went unanswered. The name Jonathan Arnaud had closed every door. He spent his evenings on his sofa, the gold taste-of-in now a relic in its box, a reminder of what arrogance had cost. Meanwhile, Wine and Spirits magazine featured Samuel Diop. The headline read, "The Sommelier Who Rose from the Busboy's Vest." Reservations at Lumiere tripled. The phone rang from lunch until midnight, every caller asking for the Diop experience.
The best decision I ever made was listening to a busboy.
At the annual staff party, Elliot stood beside the Diop plaque and raised his glass.
To Samuel Diop, who proved that wisdom wears no uniform.
Across the city, a gold taste-of-in gathered dust in a forgotten box. Its shine dulled forever. Frank Whitmore eventually took a job managing a wine shop on the Jersey Shore, far from Michelin stars. At the Diop Wine Program, Samuel poured a new vintage. His father's name now stood beside Cheval Blanc. Months later, on a quiet Tuesday night, Samuel stayed long after closing. The dining room was a chapel of empty chairs. He walked past the brass plaque, his fingers brushing the engraving, "Diop Wine Program" from the cellar. He chose a modest 2005 Bordeaux, not a legend, but the wine his father had packed for his emigration. He poured a single glass and set it at the counter, an empty seat across from him.
You never tasted your own wine in France. Tonight, Papa, taste it with me.
He lifted the glass. The wine was nothing like Cheval Blanc, but it was home. Outside, Tribeca was silent. Inside, 2 generations sat at a counter. The boy from Bordeaux had closed the circle his father began. No critic, no humiliation, no gold Tasteven could touch that. He set the glass down, folded his apron, and turned off the lights. The plaque caught the last glimmer, and in the darkness the name Diop remained, carved not in stone, but in wine. Long before the tasting counter, a cellar in Saint-Émilion held the same silence. In 1947, Amadou Diop laid bottles on racks that would become legend. A young Samuel learned the language of corks at his father's side.
Everything I needed to know, he taught me in that dark room.
Decades later, in Tribeca, 1 cork stain was enough to start a quiet revolution. A critic dropped his glass. A sommelier lost his taste of vin. A busboy reclaimed his name. The wine that Frank mocked became the centerpiece of a new legacy. And at Lumière, under the Diop plaque, a quiet man pours a story into every glass. It began with a stain. It ended with a name. And it proves that wisdom wears no uniform. In the quiet of the tasting counter, the boy from Bordeaux has found his home.